What is up? It's me. I'm back with another video for you. Hope you're doing fantastic. Hope everything's going well. And what is this? Are we back from spring break yet? I don't know. I don't even know what day it is. I don't even know who I am. I don't even know where I am. But hey, if spring break has happened, I hope you had a great time. If it hasn't happened, have fun. I'll see you when you get back, but the week after you get back. So, well, everyone, today we're talking about, continuing on with the Cold War, we're going to talk a little bit about the new leadership that comes in after Eisenhower and Stalin. Eisenhower stops being president, obviously, and then Stalin actually dies. So we're going to talk about the death of Stalin, what happened, and then, how does Russia and the Soviet Union change after that? Because this is going to usher in the new era of the Cold War. We're about to get into the 1960s. So in the 50s, remember, culturally, this is a time of great conservatism. Everyone is really pretty close-minded, I would say, to anything that was, different or new, which obviously is not good, right? Because closing yourself off to information is not the way to protect yourself necessarily. So the 60s are going to be very different. The 60s, we're going to start in 1960, obviously, and it's going to look a lot like the 50s. It's going to look and feel a lot like the 50s, but over time, 1969 is like America and the world is in a totally different place than in 1960. It is truly a transformation that has to be studied, so it's pretty awesome. I love the 1960s. I think it's super important and fascinating to learn about, so this is definitely one of my favorite parts of the class. So we're going to spend some good time on the 50s today. All right. So in your notes, I want you to make a new section. We already talked about the Korean War. Hopefully you guys remember that. New section today, I want you to put a new title. Okay? I want you to put Russia under new control. By the way, got some chicken salad chick today. You guys ever had that? Pretty good. It's a little bit girly, but you know what? No shame in it. No shame in it. Get the fancy Nancy. Get the grape salad. It's delicious. Okay, so Russia under new control. Obviously, that implies that Stalin is no more. Now, we talked about dictators in the past, right? A lot of them kind of get what's coming to them. Hitler, kills himself. Mussolini is killed by his own people. And then you get to Stalin, and he kind of just dies. Nobody kills him. He goes down as one of the few dictators that isn't ever taken out. God just takes him out, just says, and you're done now. And he dies. Now, there's a pretty famous story about this. It's pretty interesting. The story is that he wasn't feeling well, and so he was in his office, and he told people, he said, do not come in here under any circumstance. Kind of similar to when Hitler said, do not wake me under any circumstance. So if Stalin tells you to do that, you don't wake him up. Well, he had a heart attack, and he died in his office, and nobody came to get him for, I want to say, about a day and a half. No one had seen him. Now, there are a lot of people that could have taken over the Soviet Union, so this doesn't, just because Stalin dies, it doesn't mean that the Soviet Union dissolves. But everybody kind of understood that the way that Stalin was running the Soviet Union, it wasn't sustainable because no one liked him. Okay, so you got to have a new leader, someone who is a true communist. Because remember, Stalin he's really more of a fascist. He would never say that. But he operated more like a fascist than a communist. So you got to get someone in there who's a true communist. There's a lot of people that were wanting to take over. And there was definitely a power struggle. There were people who were, stabbing each other in the back, having other people executed. It was very bloody. The person that ends up taking over is a man named Nikita Khrushchev. So I want you to write his name down, and I'll spell it for you. Nikita. 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 Khrushchev is spelled Khrushchev. So quite the mouthful. Nikita Khrushchev. He takes over the Soviet Union. Okay, now what's interesting is that he's super different from Stalin. He's not going to run the Soviet Union like it's a dictatorship. He's definitely more negotiable than Stalin. So I'm not saying he's a good person or a good leader, but he is at least more rational. Okay? Stalin basically had his finger over the red button at all times, right? He wanted the smoke. He's dead now. So now tensions do kind of drop for a second, okay? But this doesn't mean that Khrushchev is just going to be like, "All right, America, you can do what you want, we don't really matter." No. They're still going to be aggressive. Their foreign policy is going to be very aggressive. There's still animosity between America and the Soviet Union, but he is just a more rational person, and that means that in the future, he's going to be able to negotiate with U.S. presidents. So that's good. All right, we're glad that happened. Okay, so I want you to write down, he's the last person that anyone expected. Khrushchev is like not a general. He's not a military guy. He's really more of a diplomat. Kind of an odd pick. And really what happens is he's kind of the only guy left. A lot of the other people kill each other off. And so nobody was concerned about him. And so he just kind of takes control, which is super fascinating. So he believed in the idea of communism. Actually, I would compare him a lot more to Trotsky. He's much more like Trotsky, where Trotsky was like, communism needs to spread around the world. It is the liberator of all people. That's how he viewed communism. Communism to Khrushchev is like a charity, right? You do this for people because it's a good thing. So hopefully that's making sense. But I really just want you to know he's a lot more rational than Stalin is. Imagine the cheers when Stalin dies. First of all, people in Russia don't believe it. They think he's faking. And so no one celebrates because they learned their lesson with Hitler. Remember when Hitler did that? So they're like, mourning in the streets. Even the people like closest to Stalin who liked him but really wanted him to die so that they could take his position, they were all crying over his body. No, no. And I imagine they all kind of eyeballed each other and they're like, oh man, is he actually dead? Is this actually happening? He's dead. Reality began to set in. All right, so Americans are very happy that Stalin is dead. But this comes right before the news that the Soviet Union has successfully tested an atomic bomb. Yikes. So I want you to write that down. The Soviets successfully test atomic bomb. So now it is not just the United States that has the atom bomb. The Soviets also have the atomic bomb. Obviously, this is super bad for the United States. We do not want that. But it is what it is. So here's what we're going to try to do. Okay, they have the bomb now. That's bad. We can't let them give the bomb to countries that would use the bomb against us. We think that maybe, if it's like, you can negotiate with Khrushchev, keep him from dropping an atom bomb on America. But if he gives it to the wrong country, they might not be as easily negotiated with. So that's kind of where we're at. We're like, you better not give this to any of your buddies. And Khrushchev's like, maybe I will. I don't know. Because here's the thing. We've given it to all of our buddies. So isn't it only fair that he gives it to his buddies? That's his argument. Okay. So I want you to write another thing down underneath the successfully testing of the atomic bomb. I want you to write down the Warsaw Pact. Warsaw Pact. The Warsaw Pact. This is basically the communist version of NATO. So you can even put that. It's the Soviet NATO. It's this idea that all these countries in the Soviet Union are going to unite together, and if any of them are attacked or threatened, they're all going to respond as one. Okay? So, again, America already has this with their allies. This is just Russia's version of forming that. Sorry. My bad, y'all. My bad. Okay, by the way, remember, pause me at any time. If you need to pause me, feel free. Okay, so now we have new leadership in Russia. It's time to talk about the new leadership in the United States. So, I'll give you a second. Think who becomes president after Eisenhower. 1960 election. Anybody know? That's correct, student over there. John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy becomes president in 1960. Does anybody know who he ran against in 1960? Richard Nixon. Now, what's interesting about that is that Nixon later becomes president. But we're going to spend a good amount of time talking about JFK. All right, so we're just going to kind of introduce this concept of JFK today. So I want you to pause me for a moment, and I want you to answer this question. Is JFK remembered as a good president? And if so, why? Okay? Go ahead and pause me, discuss. About 5 minutes. Turn and talk. Go ahead and pause me. Okay, welcome back. So, you might have found it difficult to really think about things that John F. Kennedy did. He's one of our most popular presidents still. People still talk about JFK. And you might have come to the conclusion, well, really the only thing I know about him is that he died, that he got assassinated. That's actually what most people only know about JFK, which is quite sad because obviously imagine only being remembered for the way that you died. That's pretty sad to sum his life up like that. But Kennedy is a fascinating man. He is, on one hand, seemingly perfect. I mean, he's like well-spoken. He was considered extremely handsome for the time. He's young. He's got like this idealistic-looking family. He served in World War II. He's got an iconic voice, if you know how he talked. He had the Boston accent, right? So he's got everything that you want in a president on paper. But then as a human being, incredibly troubled man, very troubled. He had some bad habits. He would, this is one of the most famous things about him. He liked the ladies a little bit too much, okay? Not really in like a Bill Clinton way, where it's like gross, and I definitely think it's still gross, but it's not as predator-like. This is more like the ladies liked him back, but he was a married man. He would basically go on weekend trips to Vegas, and people were like, well, "Where's the president?" They're like, "I don't know. He's with some person. Told us not to talk to him." That's just how I was. Obviously, that's inexcusable, but it's interesting historically to kind of look at all facets of a man. So let me go ahead and tell you some things that JFK did. One of the most important things. John F. Kennedy steered our country when we were probably the closest that we had ever gotten to nuclear war. He kept us out of nuclear war, and he did so not with violence or aggression. He did it with the most powerful political tool ever, okay, ever. And it's so simple. He just talked to the other side. That's it. And he didn't talk to a diplomat. He called the leader. He called Nikita Khrushchev and talked to him on the phone. Just man to man. Incredibly powerful tool. So is he, is it fair that he's remembered as one of our best presidents? I don't know. I think that he kind of didn't get a chance to show what he could really do because he died so quick. He's elected in 1960. He dies in 1963. So, he doesn't even complete a term. But let's talk about who he ran against. So in the 1960 election, I want you to write this down. 1960 election. I want you to write JFK versus Nixon. All right. We talked a little bit about JFK so far, but let's talk about his competitor. I don't think Nixon was a good man. I think Nixon is one of the most fascinating presidents ever. I find him extremely interesting. He's almost like he's like that person where, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's like the more you read about him, it's like you get what he's trying to do, but he does it in like the scummiest way possible. And you're like, why did you do it like that? Why did you have to say that? Why did you do that? He's so fascinating. Nixon really, yeah, he says he respects JFK, but JFK is everything that Nixon isn't. JFK's super well spoken, iconic voice, right? Handsome, young. Nixon, not handsome, right? Really had to work for what he had. JFK was born into one of the most wealthy families in America. The Kennedys are like stupid rich, already influential. So there's this idea that, like, you know, Kennedy was like, you know, while I was raised in the streets of Boston. Look, no, okay, he's very wealthy. He didn't have to struggle for anything. Nixon kind of pulled it out of the dirt. You know what I mean? He feels like he deserves to be president because he's worked really hard for it. And because he feels that way, that leads him to do things that are like not correct and moral. Okay? He believes that as president, you can kind of bend the rules. Okay? The rules are just a suggestion. JFK, even though, you know, when you think about Nixon and JFK, Nixon is obviously the one that is the most corrupt. People are like, oh, well, he cheated. Let's just be upfront. Every single president has cheated. I don't think there's, you know, there might not be evidence that they cheated, but politics is a dirty game. Besides maybe Washington, okay, who I can't see cheating. Even Lincoln could have cheated. JFK 100% cheated. They're all collecting information on their competitors. So, you know, don't have it in your head that, you know, if you ever hear, well, Nixon's the worst president because he cheated. Every president cheated. Nixon just got caught, and so he's the one that takes all the blame. But we're going to be talking more about John F. Kennedy. So I want you to just quick note for this election. I want you to put John F. Kennedy, youngest president. Oh, no, he's not. Sorry. Roosevelt was. I want you to put down JFK, young, handsome. Really was what most people immediately saw. Because, by the way, this is also the first election that's televised. So, totally changes politics. Because now, it's like, well, what does the president look like? What is he wearing? Does he have a nice tie? How does he look when he talks? Before that, it was just a voice or a picture and a newspaper. But all of a sudden now it's like, well, how do you look on TV? And JFK looked good on TV. People thought he was attractive. He was handsome. And then I want you to put Richard Nixon. Not handsome. Not as well spoken. I'll end on this really interesting stat. People who watched the 1960 debate between JFK and Nixon said that JFK won the debate. Okay? People who only listened to it said that Nixon won the debate. Nixon made much better points than JFK, but Nixon didn't look confident. He didn't look well kept. His suit wasn't nice, and so JFK wins the election, and Nixon blames it on the fact that he doesn't look as good as JFK. He says he just won because he's handsome. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it is interesting. All right, we'll end there. I hope you're having a great day. I will catch you in the next video. Appreciate you, and take care. God bless you. See ya.